Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Fight Talk Live with your host. On this one, it's the troublesome two of Base the Kid and October Red. Uh, Danny Glover is still making his ways back from Ireland with Craig Richards, victorious obviously last night. And I believe Maestro is currently covering a amateur tournament over there in the States. So you're blessed with us. First things first, October, how are you? Thank you very much for
All the
being in
best.
attendance.
Well, all the better for hearing from you. I'm just trying to sort out the volume.
What's wrong with the volume? What happened?
It's all right. It's double playing because I've got it over on IG.
Oh, right, I get you. Okay. Well, it's a good thing
It's
we didn't
double
hear
playing
that.
on both. Let me see if I can get rid of it. I don't know if you can hear it in the background. But,
Well, I can't hear anything. I can only hear you. So
hmm,
maybe just turn down the phone in it, or
might have to, but then I don't think I can hear you. It's just a technical difficulties on this. There's always going to be something with me. You know what it's like. Oh, got it. There we go. I've
yeah.
muted it on there.
Like
So
I said, we couldn't hear it. We couldn't hear it anyway. So shout out. But
awesome.
yeah, look, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to keep this one fairly brief. I mean, there is a chance Maestro may drop in a little bit, but as you know, he's kind of like the Michael Jackson of this family. Like he's here when he's here, and when he's not, he's not. So you just pay and you just hope that he's in attendance. But look, first things first, let's just greet the people that have jumped in nice and early. I appreciate, probably they may be from all different platforms. So I can see Philip Answers in the building. Shout out to you, Tony, 10 times 206. Hot Pies, Karma Serene in the building. Shout out Karma. Who else have we got in here? Danny Glover is here, obviously in the chat while he's obviously traveling. So shout out Mulla Mulla in the building as well. Christopher Anthony, Raymond Hales as well. Thank you lot very much for being here. Just before we start, ladies and gentlemen, please do not forget that Fight Fan TV. Obviously, we are regrowing the channel. So, however you're watching, whether you're watching
Hmm.
through my platform, through October's platform, through our Twixes, through Maestro or Fight Fan TV, please make sure you click the link in the description for the Fight Talk Live channel. Subscribe over there and make sure you start watching from there in future, because within the next month or so, all the content will be specifically and exclusively on that channel. Right, with that being said, we've had a pretty busy week of action, and I'm trying to think of the best way to start. But I think because it's the freshest in our minds, I say we start with what just occurred this weekend,
Hmm.
and then we move backwards to yeah, the mad press conference and all the other stuff that we had. So look, let's start um in Ireland. Let's start with the Crockart versus Donovan card. Primarily, look, just the whichever fights I guess take fancy, but I'll leave it to you as an overall. What did you sort of like? What did you take from it?
I always like the cards in Ireland because they're a lively bunch. Their boxing is like their number one thing. It's cultural when it comes to Ireland for boxing. It's boxing or football. I've spoke to plenty of them, and they've said it's one or the other, and they usually end up in boxing. So I thought it was a. I liked it from the press conference. Um, I liked the girls' fight actually. To be fair, that caught my eye. I won't try and pronounce. I think was she Albanian,
No, she was Turkish.
Turkish. I do beg your pardon. But yeah, I really enjoyed that fight. Nice early night for her. To be fair, I thought the Irish girl was going to bring it. She seemed like she was ready on smoke. I think she's a fighter that potentially sponsored by Gold Star. But the Turkish lady just came in and swept her off her feet, one for a better word, until she was on the floor saying, "What happened?" When she got up, that was a clean shot because she was like, "What happened? Like, how did I get here?" Which just shows the strength in that fighter. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I did watch, obviously, McCarthy because I've spoken to him before. Surprised to see him back out. To be fair, I thought he'd retired, but I don't know. Maybe they needed someone to just fill up the card. I don't know. So apologies to him if he thinks I'm being disrespectful. I thought he'd finished. And then obviously the main event, which, yeah, speaks for itself, and I'm sure we can go into that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, look, I mean, I didn't see most of the card. I was actually in transit back from North London. I had it kind of on the phone, but you're not really paying attention. I
Yeah,
didn't see the Shauna Brown fight. Who was she fighting? Elif Nur
yeah, elite. That's
Turin
it.
or Turnham?
Yeah,
Turnham, I think her name was. I saw the knockout though, and yes, it was. That was a very very special punch, but it was a
long
punch
hook.
that was so avoidable. Number one, you ran into it literally 5 seconds
Yeah,
before that, and there
she
was
was.
no adjustment.
Yeah, she was fainting.
Unless, well, then the thing is, when I
Elite
say there's
was
no adjustment,
fainting. Like
no, I get that. But when it happened, when I just said, "Oh, no adjustment," but now I'm thinking about it. That first
mm,
punch, when I first actually saw the exchange, I
yeah,
thought she was in orthodox position, and the punch knocked her southpaw. So I thought,
yeah,
oh, maybe it's actually hurt her, but she was actually in that southpaw stance
yeah,
anyway.
in
But
the
clearly,
southpaw
she was hurt
stance.
and not thinking about it. So it happened. I mean, I guess Alif moves on. I wonder when she'll get her next opportunity.
Caroline
So
Dubois is the name that's been thrown in.
okay, well, that's interesting. We can save that for a moment. Yeah, after that, I mean, I saw the last round of the Tommy McCarthy fight as I was driving back. I listened to him in the press conference. He said, "Look, I wasn't taking it serious before. I was just doing it for the money, but now, I feel like there's a certain desire. There's some unfinished business. I need to do this. From what I heard, it was he got knocked down and it was fairly competitive. But what I saw was just the same Tommy McCarthy that I think has just been worn down by
Yeah,
hard fights before
yeah,
his time, fights above his level before he was ready, and now there's just kind of nothing there. So whether or not he thinks it's time to call it quits now, or not, maybe just for his health, that's always the first thing I say. Although
mm,
if he is on his I want the money thing and it's all I know or it's something that I know, and he's happy to kind of just be a little journeyman gatekeeper, that's cool. But I would suggest sticking being a 6 round guy or like a 4 round guy rather than being eights and tens. Less chance of getting of damage in that sense. But
he was
we'll
doing
we'll see.
stand-up base. He
Yeah.
was doing stand-up comedy
Okay.
in
Well, I
Ireland.
mean, he didn't seem that funny in the press conference, so maybe he's got to work on that. Yeah, who knows? You know me. I mean,
True,
like I said,
true story. It up, yeah.
we're the troublesome too. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, man. But okay, so from there, I saw part of the Kurt Walker and Leon Woodstock fight. Again, that
Oh, I
that
missed
fight
that one.
seemed, yeah, that fight seemed it seemed pretty cool actually. To be fair, like he had, I'll give Walker a lot of sort of props on the first half. He seemed like he was just boxing, but when he
Mm,
wanted to stand and trade and actually have a fight and a tear up kind of thing with Woodstock, that's kind of when Woodstock came into the fight. I think. How
okay.
did you see it?
I that was one of them that I missed out on. To be fair, um, I kind of expected Walker to win. I'm not sure how much young Lion had back in him after Kakachi absolutely mauled him to death. I know it was years ago, but it's a fight that remains very strong in my head because I watched it live, and that was a pasting. And we know that over time it takes a lot out of the fighters. So fair play to him, but I did think that potentially the other chap would win, and obviously that's what happened in the end. But I didn't watch it.
Fair enough. Yeah, again, it was one that I was kind of when I was driving. Okay, so look, let's talk about Mr. Craig Spider Richards and his opponent Podrick McCrory.
Mm.
Yeah, look, have your thoughts. How did you see that fight?
Um, First of all, shout out to Craig Richards. I'm happy that he's back. A fighter that's such a gentleman. Yeah, okay, he's Danny's cousin. Let's make no bones about it. But before I knew he was Danny's cousin, he was always awesome to me anyway. He seemed like he lost his way a little bit. Obviously, he moved over to Shane McGuigan, and it just goes to show that sometimes, a good coach isn't necessarily the right coach for you. because one size doesn't fit all with coaches, and he found his way back home, back in the Sims gym. And I saw a really good, and I saw aggression from him. What I liked is the way that he just really dig into McCrory's body. The body shots were they were meaningful. He was throwing them with purpose, and obviously it did the job in the end because he just looked like he didn't like it, didn't like what was coming from Craig. Don't get me wrong, he got caught with a couple himself. However, his defense was a lot better. He was able to evade a few shots, and that's the Craig Richards we know. With a bit of improvement, I may add. I thought he looked more aggressive, more stronger. But yeah, I was happy with the win and happy for him.
I did like the added aggression, although there is that still that same criticism of the first couple of rounds.
Yeah,
He There was very much standoff. Okay, I know you want to have a look, but while he was
yeah,
having a look, there was no jab. He wasn't. It just seemed like he was coasting those rounds. And
okay.
again, that has always been a criticism. Is like everyone's like, oh, if I'd have just started a round earlier, I could have done it, kind of thing.
Mm,
We thought it almost felt like we was about to get into that pattern, but from like the third round on, I feel like from there he just realized, okay, do you know what? I think to be fair, I think Tony gave him a little talking to in the course.
he
Said, look,
did.
okay, it's time to step it up now. And then from there, say, okay, switched on,
Switched on.
pressed him. Obviously, yeah, sometimes rush the work, maybe eager to sort of, maybe get that fight back, get that perception back of him, being who he is. But yeah,
True.
it was a systematic breakdown. There was no there was no sort of over eagerness in terms of being fully reckless. And the few times that he did get caught, again, he wore the shots well.
Yep.
Whether Broderick McCrory is a big puncher or not, we all know that there's never been a question about Craig Richards' chin or his ability to take a shot. Um, so yeah, and obviously, he dominated on work rate overall. He dominated on power punching, that jab, just being a handful and a nightmare. And by the end of the fifth round, to be honest, Broderick McCrory looked like he didn't even really want to be there. So the
I
fact he
think he
lasted
said
another,
something. I
yeah,
think he said something in the corner base. I can't remember what round it was in, but I'm sure.
mm,
Look, don't quote me on it, but the
okay,
vibe I got was sort of like, I don't really want to be in here. Something happened, or it was like, what round? Where are we? Or whatever. There was a bit of panic in him. I wish I could go
okay.
back and watch it, but I heard something in the corner. I thought, this ain't gonna go. This ain't gonna last long. But obviously, it did. But yeah, he did. I'm happy for him. He's where he needs to be. He's back where he is. Phillips just said in the chat, he needs that Hutchinson rematch. You know what? I
I
wouldn't
was
mind
just about
seeing
to
that.
ask you what you think about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that because this is a different Craig. This is a different Craig. And I think there was a lot going on, a lot of pressure. I remember it was was it the 5v5? It was, wasn't
Yeah.
it? So, and he was the only UK fighter. Look, I'm not making up excuses, but that performance, and he'll tell you himself, wasn't his best. So let's see, where he goes next. But I wouldn't say no to a rematch with that.
Okay, well, yeah. Shout out to man like Spider Richards. Looking forward to the next one. Got to get out there, get active, keep your name in circulation, all that good stuff. Now, let's talk about the main event. And full
Hmm.
disclosure, I had no real interest in this card initially when it came out. The only tie I had to the card was watching Craig Richards have a comeback. If I'm going to be totally honest,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
while I do, Lewis Crocker, Paddy Donovan, fine, but they're just not fighters that necessarily ever interested me.
yeah,
So yeah, I had no real passion for it, hence why there was no basis picks for the wider audience, although my predictions league saw who I predicted for everyone.
yeah,
um but yeah, look, that main event, first things first, I mean, look, Lewis Crocker, good engine, tough,
yeah,
maybe strong. I don't know, but outside of that, very limited fighter. Nothing special about him at all. Don't know what Billy Nelson's teaching him. That tuck up defense plan that they have of, okay, like, get them to the second half of the fight and take over. That only really works if you are up on the first half of the fight. So
Hmm.
when he's there saying, oh, I wanted to take him to the second half and get to work, well, you was in the second half of the fight and still getting your head stomped in.
Yeah.
So that tuck up defense business, yeah, it's not really for you. And ultimately, the point, and I said this on my video earlier. So if anyone's seen it, you know what I'm about to say. If your game plan is to absorb punishment for 6 rounds or 5 rounds and then take over in the second half of the fight, then you're not much of a fighter to begin. The game plan's supposed to be to win every single round you can, just in case. You're trying to go for the knockout.
Yeah.
That's what they say, go for the knockout. But the plan is to win every individual
Yeah.
single round.
Yeah.
And I think maybe he won 2 at a push.
Okay.
Now, I want to preface that by saying I've never really been high on Ivar. I'm not particularly keen on Paddy Donovan, but he was styling on Lewis Crocker for the entire fight. Like, he made it look like almost like Padley and Stevenson in terms of their skill levels in that ring. And I think Padley is a better technician than
Yeah.
Lewis Crocker is at this point. So yeah, it was, if we're gonna be honest, like, Lewis Crocker is lucky that Paddy Donovan is an idiot. Like, no, no offense, but like, he threw that fight away. It was his fight to lose, and he lost it. You know when they say snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. Well, he threw defeat down from the jaws of victory. Like, he said, nope, I don't want this. I'm done, and just got rid of it. No idea why. We'll talk about that in a moment. But what did
Yeah.
you think of
Um, I've always liked Paddy Donovan. The first time I laid eyes on him was when he fought on the Josh Taylor Jack Catterall undercard, and he caught my eye. Then it was both him and his brother. Um, Brilliant guys. Got to speak to obviously Andy Lee, so I've kept my eye on him since then. I know what he's like or what his style is like, and his style proved very well against Crocker. Um, Clearly, he's an emotional fighter because we saw that. However, he did have the skill in there. Look, the head going in. I mean, yeah, you can say, you can, whoever looks at it, however they want to look at it, can make their own mind up. However, I know this is controversial, but I thought it was literally he was in the throw of shots, and literally the second the bell went, he threw the last shot. I didn't see that it was. I didn't believe that it was intentional. I just thought that he was in the throes of the moment. Listen, I'm not saying that he didn't hear the bell or whatever it was, but I just think that he didn't think I'm going to get you after the bell. I just believe that he just carried on, like throwing the shots, throwing the combinations in the moment. And I get
Have you
it.
watched it back? Have you watched it
No,
back?
that
Okay.
was live, and that was me watching it from a neutral standpoint. Obviously, I've got an investment eye on Crocker because I know that Richard Riakporhe is also now with Billy Nelson. So I want to see what look, every fighter has a different style, but there's a reason why I was watching Crocker. There's a reason why I was watching Bacoli, because I want to see something. Um, but yeah, I know it's controversial. Yes, I will watch it back. Yes, I may change my mind, but at that time, I just thought he was in the throes. The bell went literally a split second after he went for the last shot to the head, which he went down with. But I get it. That was me watching it in the moment. So yeah, probably do need to
Okay.
watch it back. But I don't think it was
Red.
intentional.
I will tell you this: from there was 3 bells right at the end of the round. Ding, ding,
Yeah,
ding. From the
yeah,
first bell
yeah.
to the third one was about 2 seconds, give or take. He
Two
he threw
seconds.
that shot a
Yeah.
second after the final
So
bell.
so three
So that at
seconds.
that point there's a time for you to stop shoot, and then as soon as he threw the shot, he turned
Yep.
to walk to his corner. So he definitely heard the bell.
Hmm.
Um, but one thing, obviously, Marcus McDonald maybe should have been a bit closer. I can
Hmm.
understand why he maybe wasn't in a rush to try and get between them in that moment. But
Yeah.
no, the thing is, outside of that, if it was in isolation, you say, all right, you
But
might
it's
just get a
everything
point.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, you might get a point off, and there might referee might talk to you. You might give
Mm.
Crocker some time, and then you see what's going to happen. Ultimately, I think Crocker was about to. He was either going to get stopped on his stall. Don't think they was going to send him back out, or he would have got stopped the following round. So with all of that in
Regardless.
play,
Mm.
no, but with all of that in play, you think to yourself, I already know that I've got you here. Like I don't have to rush. I've heard that klaxon, but he's seen his eye basically. Look, the eye is closed. He can't.
Yep.
He's actually
Yep.
squinting the eye. He can't see anything out of it. There's no need to rush that. You know, the next round, regardless, like he's out of there. So
Mm.
I just think it comes down ultimately to immaturity. Maybe a little bit of entitlement. Maybe he feels like because I deserve to be in this spot. Like I'm almost the favored guy. I feel like he feels that
Yeah.
he was the A side in terms of
Okay.
who Matchroom might be pushing more, in my opinion, and so he felt like he can maybe take a bit more liberties. But outside of that, look, with the head clashes, not all of them were intentional. I agree, but the problem is both guys obviously were kind of down, crouched, leading
Yeah.
sort of with their head, but
Yeah. It was a bit phone boxy.
one person's keeping their head central and not moving it. The other
Mm-hmm.
one's dipping in and out and
Yep.
actually even using their head to try and open up the guard and
Maneuver.
pushing forward with it
Yeah.
as well. So when you do that so many times
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
you've been warned, of course you're going to get points taken off.
Mm.
The thing what I don't understand though, with the amount of times that their heads did properly come in and clash,
Yep.
how the referee ruled that all the punches were the cuts were scored by punches, because I didn't see punches cause those cuts. I saw
Yeah. I
those
think.
cuts occur after clashes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and then the thing is, we talk about that, and people are saying, "Oh, well, the ref was being a bit harsh because they was both going in with their heads," but yet Marcus didn't say anything about the blatant elbow which cut open the bottom of his
Mm.
and that was really blatant. That wasn't even like you walk into it. He pushed his elbow into him, and obviously you get
Yeah. They slow
Crocker
mode
started
that down.
complaining.
Yeah. They slowed mode
Even
that
more,
down. Yeah. He
Crocker's
went. Yeah.
complaining.
Yeah. He went.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but the thing is, you see, when he's lucky because at that same time, imagine the guy's not even looking at you, and this is where I would say Paddy Donovan. This is where maybe that ring IQ and those skills ain't quite where he thinks they are, because at this
Mm.
point, Crocker is leaned back up in the air and has
Yeah.
turned to look at the referee. He's not even looking at you.
Yeah. True.
Donovan threw two shots and both of them missed. How do you miss someone that's not even looking at you?
Yeah.
I
Could have
found
been
that
a.
hilarious
Yeah.
when it happened.
Yeah.
But my point being, the referee like, what? Carry on fighting. I'm like, well, no, ref. You should actually, if you saw that elbow came in, like break the action
I
and
think
have a
that's what.
word.
Well, that's why it ultimately went for the DQ in the end, isn't it? It was
Yeah.
a culmination of loads of different things happening in the fight. So, yeah, interesting.
What do you think they do? Do you think they have that immediate rematch that Eddie Hearn wants, or do you think that maybe Lewis Crocker feels like, I got away with one, so I'm just gonna go for my title shot and take the money from that?
And that is down to him, isn't it? It's
What do
down to
you
him.
think?
He's on the A side. I'd like to see a rematch. Of course, I would, because I like the fight. It was an enjoyable fight to watch. So of course, I'd like to see him do it again. But Crocker's the one. He's the A side. He's the winner. So ultimately, it's down to him. We'll see what decision he makes, whether he wants to take the rematch or whether he wants to move on. Um, if I was him, I'd probably move on.
Personally, I think he needs to run it back with Conor Walker. That was the biggest robbery of last year. You know
Yeah,
me.
and we were there. Well, we were
Yeah,
there. We watched that live.
yeah. I think Conor deserves that get back. But
Mm.
that's probably two rematches he'll swerve. But we'll see. You never
Well,
know.
and this is it.
So, all right, with that out of the way, look, we there was a Queensbury card on as well, which I
Oh,
think nobody knew about until maybe Thursday. So you can clearly tell that the TNT Queensbury partnership is officially dead. There was pretty much no promotion for that at all. I haven't seen any of it. The only thing I know is that Joe Joyce was supposed to be fighting Patrick Corte on there, and
yeah.
he got pulled off of the card. Any thoughts in your opinion?
I don't know. Base. When did that actually come out that he wasn't going to be on the card? I know it was. Was it announced on one of the press
Friday.
decks? Because
I think it
I
was on
haven't
Friday.
been keeping up with all the YouTube stuff. I've only been looking at the clips on IG, so it was like, okay, Joyce is not on it. Did they say why?
I didn't hear anything, but all I saw was they said that he was not gonna be able to commit to the or make the fight, but or they said it shouldn't affect the Dillian White fight. So they
It
used the word
shouldn't.
shouldn't, which maybe means he
It
might have been ill,
shouldn't.
possibly, but I don't know.
Okay.
We're just gonna have to, hope that he. Well, I say that if he's ill, then cool, get recovered. If it's something else other than that, I don't want them to take the chance. Like
Correct.
this, yeah,
I feel
especially
yeah.
with the way he is at the moment. Like
I
yeah.
agree.
If we need a replacement opponent, let's do that instead.
Who could be a
But
replacement opponent though?
um,
Don't get me. There's enough notice for someone to get fit as such in that
yeah,
time, but who could be the replacement for that?
possible. I mean, Takam's still kind of in and around. Carlos Takam would be a
Yeah.
decent replacement.
Did Dylan fight him
Um,
already?
no, Dillian's never
Oh, he
fought him.
hasn't
That's
fought him. Okay,
Chisora.
nice. Okay,
Chisora's
okay.
fought him. I mean, look, if we're gonna, yeah, Takam's one, maybe Murad Aliyev potentially. I mean, if he's willing to take it, Tony Yoka. I mean, he's looking for opportunities at the moment.
Yeah,
That might
that's
be,
not a bad shout actually.
and I think he's gone with Frank as well. So that wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea. Other than that, there's a couple of guys in America. Jeremiah Milton would probably be a good choice.
Someone said
Um,
Jarrell Miller. Christopher Anthony said Jarrell Miller.
yeah, he won't do it on 4 weeks' notice.
Oh yeah, we're in
Is it?
March already.
Yeah, it's a shame that Adam Kovnatski has had to pack it in because that would have been a fun fight. Him and Dillian and Kovnatski. That would have been a great one. Um, but yeah, look, let's just hope that Joyce is okay. He's fine
Yeah,
and he can kind of get through it.
yeah.
Um, but look, okay, so with that out of the way, there was several cards over in States and Canada and America, but the only one really worth talking about for the moment is Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach. Now, I haven't seen the entire card. I made a choice
Same.
not to
I
purchase it.
missed. Yeah.
Um, I didn't even watch all of the main event, but I've seen enough of it to sort of have an idea of how the fight played out. Loads of controversy, hence the title of the video, Egghead and Egghead Decisions. Um, with
Should
that,
have been
look,
called it
let's.
Grease Lightning.
Well, do you know what the thing is? I was trying to incorporate everything from the week.
And there's so
Exactly.
much.
So I thought, okay, there was initially I was like, okay, could I call it green eggs and ham? Would that have made the point? I'm like, okay, what would the ham be? I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
Obviously, the original title was great. If only we had the press conference to talk about. I had another idea in mind as well, but then I thought, okay, well, that what I've
Nah,
done
nah.
here.
That's what you've done is all right,
The
man. I
only other
like
one I
it.
was going to have was, um, I think it was expect bad decisions. I think that was going
Oh,
to be the. I
well,
think I was
that's
going
not
to
a bad
choose.
one either, actually.
I was going to choose that, but then I thought, okay, no, actually, let's yeah. Anyway, um,
Titles
but look,
aside,
yeah, titles aside, Davis versus Roach. From what I saw, now initially, I predicted that the fight would go points. I did predict that in my predictions league, and I said that it would be. I believed it would be Tank Davis unanimous decision.
mm,
Um,
told you
look,
it'd happen.
Yeah, Lamont
That's
Roach,
what it
he's a
right?
good
Who
fighter.
is he?
He's a
What?
who?
Grace, give us some history on Lamont Roach, because me, once again, I will say I haven't checked him out. I just thought,
Okay.
who is he? So I need you to let us know about him because he shocked me, but I didn't do any homework.
No. Look, Lamont Roach is a good fighter. He's a guy that sort of came up through the ranks. I guess what you might call the hard way to a degree. He didn't really have any big promoters behind him or whatnot. Um, had a world title shot about 4 years ago against Jamel Herring. That was sort of his biggest fight to date at the time. He
Oh,
got dropped by Herring in that fight, but then came back really strong sort of towards the end. But by that time, it kind of was way too far down on the cards. Since
okay,
then, he's been applying his trade on a lot of pro box cards and basically building his way back up through there.
okay,
But and everyone sort of from America, sort of like that amateur scene and stuff
They will
knows
know
that
him.
he's a skillful guy. He's like they would say he's not the best guy, but he's got all the ingredients to actually get the job done. His knockout ratio is very deceptive to the amount of power that he has because he only got 10 KOs, and at the time it was 26 fights. So you think, oh, he's
Right.
kind of a feather fisted puncher, but he's actually a guy that will sit in the pocket, break you down to the body, like power punches up top. Like he's actually very, very good in that sense, but he's just a very good guy. He's not an elite guy. He's not
Fair enough.
a kind of, he's not that type of guy. So when you look at someone and you say, oh, well, someone is a pound for pounder, ultimately you would expect them to do a better job against Lamont Roach than what even Jamel Herring did, who was a world class operator at the time.
Hmm.
So yeah, to see Tank go life and death with
Yeah.
Lamont Roach is, people talk about styles making fights, but this is definitely just an occasion of finally we see why you've been through that protection ring for so long. Lamont is not even the greatest of guys, and the level of trouble he caused you just tells us why you don't want to fight a Shakur Stevenson, why you don't want to fight a Keyshawn Davis, why you didn't want to fight a Devin Haney, why you didn't want to fight a Teofimo Lopez. This is why we kind of see it now in this particular performance, and I think one of the things that I'm not sure if it was Lamont Roach or if it was Ray Ford. I think on Twitter he said, "This is what happens when people ain't afraid of the power." Because like Lamont had been in with him as an amateur on a couple of occasions before, so they've had two amateur fights. He lost
Okay.
both of those amateur
Okay.
fights, but he knows obviously
So they
what
know each
Tank
other.
is. Now, bear
Yeah.
in mind that was when they was 15 and 16 years old, so yes, you get your man strength after that and whatnot.
Hmm.
But he knows the DNA of this guy. They're from that similar area, that DMV area type in America. So there was familiarity there. Hence why I believe Tank and that team like chose him above all the other um, opposition that they could have. But that aside, looking at the fight,
Mm.
ultimately we see what we saw in that ninth round. Now, I'm not even going to ask you necessarily about the rules and stuff because I know that rules aren't, they go over your head sometimes, as
Yep.
you well say. What did you think of the situation there? Did it look a bit funny to you? Like, how did you see it?
He looked like he was losing concentration, panicked, took a knee, walked to the ringside, asked for some kind of assistance, whatever you want to look at it, time delay, and then obviously came up with the grease in the eyeballs excuse. However, I know this is controversial, but I'm someone that has a whole heap of rubbish in my hair, and I do boxing training, as you know, and when that stuff gets in your eyes, it burns like hellfire. However, I'm not a professional boxer, and I know that. And I know if I was going into a professional boxing match, I would not put anything in my hair because my hair isn't necessarily the priority. Me winning a fight is. So I don't necessarily believe that he's making stuff up. To take a knee is slightly weird because usually you just wipe it and get on. You have to be quick with it. So in a fight like that, no, it doesn't look good. However, it could be a viable excuse, but not in a professional boxing match. I'm sorry, you have to have professionalism, and putting chemicals in your face or in your hair that's going to burn your eyeballs out is just not the way to go.
No, and the thing is, I don't disagree. I don't believe that he was lying about the hair. I believe that that happened. But as you said, number one, first thing is why are you doing that so close to the fight? That's the first thing. But outside of that, there was to
Mm.
me like there's so much wrong with it. Now, someone has been putting something on Twitter, this thing about if you voluntarily take a knee, not caused by a punch,
Yes.
the referee doesn't. I think you might have seen it as well. The referee
No.
doesn't. Oh, okay. Well, I'll show it to you after the show. The referee doesn't have to necessarily call it a knockdown. It can be ruled as a slip, especially if it's something to do with like an error in clothing or like something has gotten in an opponent's eye. Now, first of all, I've never seen this before. So I don't know if it's one of the rules. I actually tried to Google it to see if it was
And couldn't
correct.
find it.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen it yet, but I didn't do a big in-depth thing on it. But if we're going by that, and then they're saying, okay, that's the reason why the ref didn't count.
Mm.
Well, there was two other things that took place in that moment, which would actually lead to a disqualification or a stoppage. First of all, you've
Yeah,
turned your back to your opponent, and the ref hasn't called break, so that's one.
and he's
But
just
two,
walked
your opponent, you've gone to seek coaching in the middle of
in the middle of a
the
run.
bout,
Yep,
which again
yep.
is not allowed, especially when there is no break. And three, your trainer has got up on the ringside apron. Now, unless the referee brings him up there to maybe do a mouth guard or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
if the trainer gets up on ringside apron and the referee sees him, that's automatic stoppage / disqualification.
Mm.
So all of that together just tells you that even with the whole grease thing, like everything else just it doesn't it's almost like, all right, he was just being given
Yeah,
preferential treatment being the
he
A
can do
side,
what he
which
likes.
he probably was. Steve Willis, I don't know his rationale. We said, okay, look, it looked like you was not you looked like a knockdown kind of thing, but all right. And I'm just like, I know that they got this thing in the amateurs where yeah, sometimes you can take a knee in the amateurs for a fault and then get sorted out afterwards. But I I don't know how that relates to the pros.
Yeah,
I'd
professional.
need to do
Yeah.
more research. But that whole situation, as far as I was concerned, especially considering that there were two punches that landed beforehand. Yes, they were very
Yes, there
light
was. Yeah,
punches,
you're right.
but those two
That's what I
punches
said.
that
He
landed,
looks.
yeah,
He looks a little bit like, oh, what do I do?
and
Not
you took
trying
the
to
knee.
compare things,
Okay.
but there's been another fight recently where we've seen a fighter panic, and it's gone left. Anyway, but yeah, it
Wait,
was
which
weird.
fight specifically are you referring to?
It was weird. Don't worry
What?
about it. I know what I'm
No, but
talking about.
but
No,
we
no,
have
no.
to.
We're not
No,
doing this.
we
No, no,
gotta
we're not
talk the
doing this.
things. What?
I know what it is. In fact, let's play a game. Let's see if the chat can guess the fight I'm talking about. But anyway,
All right, chat. Leave
but
it.
yeah,
And
I'll leave it
if
to the
they get
chat.
it, then
If they
we
get
need you
it,
to
then
expand.
that's amazing for them. But
Well, red.
look, when fighters panic, and we've
Mm-hmm.
seen fighters panic, strange things can happen in the ring,
Mm-hmm.
can't they? It's
They can.
you know, and Lamont wasn't. From what I saw, like I said, I was watching all the highlights across social media. I haven't watched the full fight, but
Mm-hmm.
what I did see is that Lamont wasn't afraid. Lamont took a clean hook from Javante, the same hook that's dropped people, and Lamont shook it off and went nah, and countered him. He was aggressive in there, and he was very very durable, and
Okay.
yeah, I enjoyed what I saw. I will go back and watch the full fight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a draw, I don't know. I can't do the scoring because I didn't watch the whole fight. I let the obviously I'm just reading the comments on the internet what happened with that.
Okay.
Don Four says Trump and Zelensky.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it. But all right. Well, since Red wants to do secrecy, I guess we move on. Um, I didn't see much of the undercard. I did see a few
I
rounds
didn't.
of
Nah.
Bra Venezuela against Gary Antoine Russell. From what I saw there, Antoine Russell was doing the business, making a good comeback after I guess his upset defeat. I think it was the last fight. Yeah, the upset defeat he had. I think it was to
Okay.
Sandor Martin actually. Um, Apparently Sandor Martin he got robbed of the title. So
Okay.
I need to go and check that one out. I did also see Subriel Matias versus Gabriel Valenzuela on the zone last night.
How did he
Funny,
get on?
he won eighth rounds
Okay.
TKO. Um, Surprising that Eddie decided to only keep that relationship for one fight. But he's now with Salita Promotion, so I guess we'll. But he's also back in the IBF mandatory position, so Eddie might get back on the phone to sign him to maybe avoid that mandatory coming into place for Hitchens at the moment, so that he
Richards,
can
yeah.
do a couple of unifications. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Um, what I will say though is, yeah, there was a lot of action. There wasn't a lot of stuff that I was particularly like looking forward to, but from what I saw, there was actually some pretty good stuff. So shout out to all the boxers who pull it all on the line. Whether they got
Always.
questionable decisions, whether they won cleanly, whether they were in ascendancy, their last hurrahs, whatever.
Mm,
Shout out to you guys. But with that all being said, we've got one segment to talk about, and I will let you give me your opinion, especially considering that you was at one of these
yeah.
luxurious events. So talk to us. How did you find Eubank and Ben?
Enjoyable. Um, yeah, Tuesday, first press conference. It was Manchester, wasn't it? Was it
Yeah.
Manchester? Yeah, the auditorium in Manchester. Can't remember. I've been to so many bases. It's just all rolling into one at the moment. Um, Tiered media, as per usual, which I'll make no bones about it. I'm not a fan of it. So obviously, like the lower grade YouTubers like myself don't necessarily get access to get the content that we would like to get. I get it, maybe because there's so many of us. The industry is quite saturated. But as far as the event itself went, it was enjoyable. Eubank did turn up. Eubank Junior did turn up late, fashionably late, some would say. I'm kind of taking bets now. I think he might have stopped off at the supermarket on the way there to get his groceries. Pack of eggs being one of them. Um, Obviously, Connor turns up with his dad, so we knew where the comments were going to allude to when it come to Chris Eubank Jr. Like, he went straight for the jugular. No one likes you. Your pops don't even like you. Where is he? Why is he not here? The usual stuff. And then you see, Eubank Jr. cool, calm, collective, sipping his water, having a like basically every time Eddie Hearn was opening his mouth, he was just shutting him down. Um, it was very tense, but entertaining for us that were sat on the lower floor watching it. As everyone obviously got up for them to do the face off, I remember I was literally turned to talk to someone, and all I heard was "whoa," because you heard a crack. You literally heard crack. And then everyone's like, "Whoa!" So you turn around, and obviously everyone's pulling each other apart. I did see when Eddie like shoved Shalom. Shalom like spun around like a spinning top. Like, what's going on? Why? What happened? That was funny. Shout out Ben Shalom. Um, yeah, and it was just crazy. And then after that, obviously Eubank leaves or does what he's doing and gets off, and then whoever gets to get their conversations in with the fighters gets those in. But it was entertaining. Chris Eubank Jr. sells the fight. Um, I don't care what anybody has to say. Whoever finds him irritating or whatever, he sells the fight with his sarcasm. He was so calm. Looking at it from like sat there base, and I don't know what you think because you was there on Thursday. I really believe that Chris Eubank Jr.'s got under everyone's skin. He's wound everybody up and made them scream and shout at him while he just remains calm. He's quite good at that. He's good. He's got a very good poker face. I've heard about his gambling, but he's got an extremely good poker face because he shows no emotion. Um, and I just can't wait for it. I wanted to see the first fight. Obviously, all the failure of drug tests happened. I'm happy that this fight's happening. I get it. There's issues around it. Like I said in the beginning, I watched their father's fight. I wish Senior was there, but obviously that's up to him. Hopefully he'll be there in the coming weeks leading up to the fight. But it was brilliant. I forgot that there was an undercard base. I forgot that there was an undercard because in that moment, it's only that fight that mattered. I literally forgot about the undercard. No disrespect to the fighters, but what I'm saying is that Eubank Jr. is able to captivate an audience. He's very, very good at that, and he's enjoyable to watch. How he feeds you little things just to provoke you. He's just constantly poking you and prodding you until you explode. Um, very intelligent young man with
Well,
35-year-old fists.
first things first, before I even retort to that, thank you. Shout out to Aaron Daly.
Oh,
Dropped £2 super chats. I believe that was to both me and you because he looks like he's done a second one. So he's probably
oh,
gone
bless
through
you.
the channels and done both. So Aaron,
Aaron's from
appreciate
Birmingham.
it.
Shout out, Aaron.
He is indeed. I won't hold it against him.
Hey,
I'm joking. No, I've got a lot of love for Aaron and the rest of you Brummies. But look, here's my thing though. Before I
yeah.
even sort of get into this, yes, how do you think Chris won the press conference, the first one specifically? Like, some people, I've seen some people say, oh, it was a 10-6. I've seen some people say it was a knockout. Like, if you was going to grade it in terms of a boxing round, what would you
Oh,
score it?
right. I don't. You know me. I don't do scoring because it's pointless to ask me. Emma Wills has put in there, and I'll reflect on that. That Chris Eubank Jr. talks a lot of crap. I don't think he does. He's brought up key elements to even the financial side of the press conference. I'm not interested in the rehydration clause because at the end of the day, you sign the contract. I've always said that. If it was that bad, don't sign the contract. I've said that loudly and with everyone that I've spoke to. However, what he did do, and like I said, it's just the way he does it. He's subtle and he's sarcastic. He just basically said, at the end of the day, it's not you that funded this, Eddie. It was His Excellency. So I don't really need to talk to you about anything. So he belittles you. And it's those mind games that he plays. You've got to think, if you've got a massive ego and you're used to being the top dog and somebody like tries to bring you down a peg or two, it's going to mess with you. And that's what I like what he does, because he's clever with his words. If you're not listening, you'll just see him waffling on and it will go over your head. But if you actually listen to what he's saying, there's a lot of detail in it. And that's what I mean when I said he controlled it, because I was listening to absolutely every single word he said. The only thing that I don't want to hear about is the rehydration, because you could have said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going
Okay.
to sign. So that's the only thing. Like I said, whether it's done last minute, whether it's like if they said everything was agreed, then all of a sudden they slip that in, you put a pause on it and say, I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that it's fair what's happened, but I'm saying that you signed. But everything else, it was entertaining.
Okay, I hear that. So the reason I asked for that initially was because, like I said, I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, it was like a 10-8 to Eubank or a 10-7." Like he controlled, and yes, he did control certain parts of it. However, I don't feel as if he won this press conference as dominantly as a lot of people make out. It kind of reminded me, and I'm gonna go back to my musical backgrounds here,
Yeah, go on.
the battle rap era,
Yeah,
and some of
yeah,
those times when I've been in those situations. You've got the person that is gone, they've basically researched everything and they've gone like for that lyrical dissection, and they've gone for that approach, and they're basically telling a lot of home truths, and it's sort of
yeah,
like it's hitting and it's scathing,
yeah.
but a lot of people maybe aren't aware of it, or because it's
So it
phrased in
seems
it's
irrelevant.
this very
Yeah,
lyrical, it's a very lyrical thing where you have
I
to,
hear
maybe
that.
something you have to take some time to sit and
No, I hear
digest
that.
on. It
I
doesn't
hear that.
hit the same. Whereas
Mm.
the other person has come with just a bunch of big punchlines and cool and response that gets the crowd going. So in that moment, they've won the
Okay.
crowd, so they've won that battle.
Okay.
The reason I give it that
I get where you're
approach
going. Yeah.
is because a lot of the things that basically, especially if we look at the second press conference, like Eddie Hearn has managed to say a whole bunch of stuff. Some of it's probably complete rubbish. Some of it is definitely true, and then there's other
Mhm.
things that are just sort of there to annoy and to maybe just to poke fun at. Because that's Eddie. Obviously, he's not getting his chance. He's going to lash out and do what he wants
Yeah.
to do.
100.
It took Chris Eubank 2 days to try and rebuttal the things that Eddie said in the first press conference. So that automatically means to me that you lost, because that battle
Okay.
was there.
You weren't instinctive with it
Yeah,
to
you
come
you
with the
you went back
freestyle. All right.
and started trying to rebut things that was said 2 days ago. Like that doesn't really put you in any stead, especially considering that you've said it in that very slow, thoughtful like tone that you use as well. Like, so
Mhm.
there's that. But outside of that, when we look at everything where he's like, Eddie, no one wants to hear you. This isn't your show. And okay, cool, we get that. That's funny. But then, who said the most impactful things? Who made the other person act out of their normal character? To me, all of that was actually Conor Ben. Because once Connor's actually come with the his own dad don't even like him. Like you
That
couldn't
was straight off the bat, innit?
so but instantly, we've heard this because the dad has actually said, well, he doesn't said he hasn't he said he doesn't need me or he doesn't want me there or you've openly said I want to be around my dad. I want him here. I want to have a relationship with him again. Things aren't right. You've gone out and said this.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there is that is an instant in the
Yeah, he was
feels, and
going
then
for the. Yeah, he went for the
you
neck.
saw, and the thing is, you even saw like Chris, he didn't like that. He does he has that poker face, but you could see in that poker face, he's looking like okay. Outside of that, you've also got the fact, yeah, there's that united front on one side, and it's the same thing Ben said in the first, and he also said in the second one. Everyone on your team don't want to be around you, like, and Jonathan Banks looked like he didn't want to be there. Ronnie Davis looked like he didn't want to be there. Ben Shalom obviously is he grew
Ben
into it,
Shalom's Ben
but he's
Shalom.
mad, but
Bless
he's
him.
meek. You know what I mean? Like he didn't really. So it was Chris against a united front.
Oh
That's kind
yeah,
of what it looked like to me.
yeah, and that as a team effort, yeah, I totally agree with you. You can see that some of it's fractured, and like
Hmm.
Team Ben is solid because you had either the dad talking for Ben or you had Eddie talking for Ben. Ben was quite the protected child in the middle of all of that. Where on Chris's side, it was Chris that was there with the vocals. I'll hear that. I totally agree with that. One of the things that Chris doesn't like as well, when you talk about Poker Face, don't use his size as a reason for him to win. He wants you to acknowledge his skill. And that kept on happening. And that's the only time I saw him roll his eyes. I saw him roll his eyes there more than I saw him roll his eyes about his father, because he maybe kind of expected that about his dad, just like Connor would have expected it about, PED Gate. But when people tried to say the reason why why Chris Eubank Jr. is going to win is his size, that's what he didn't like, because people were then dismissing skill and basically saying he's going to bully him because of his size. A fighter doesn't necessarily want to hear that, and that messed with his ego.
But bearing in mind, you say that there was never one thing that Connor's team
Yeah,
said which basically was in direct
no,
conflict with what he was saying.
nah,
Every
there
single
wasn't.
one of Chris's team said the same things that he told the other team not to say. So
Mm-hmm.
that's when I'm also saying when you look at this actual press conference, it's not as clear cut as people believed it to
Mm-hmm.
be. Also, if we're looking at the first one, from obviously the outside point of view, Chris Eubank Jr., cracking the egg on the side of his face, which everyone
Yeah,
thought was a slap to begin with.
yeah,
Um, Everyone expects Connor to be the one to maybe
the
lash out, be
aggressor.
the emotional guy. So when you've
Mm.
done that, now Connor and his team, and some people may say it's a desperation thing, they've actually made you act out of character.
Do you
You're the
think
one
that
that
was out?
changed.
Do you think that was out of character for him to
It
act
was.
with like physical
He's
violence?
never
I'm
physically
not.
done
Yeah,
anything in any kind of press settings.
yeah,
In the fights is one thing, but he's never pushed anyone. He's never really gone head to head. Like he might do some funny gestures, little
yeah,
talking.
yeah.
He's never physically engaged someone before. So that is something new. So that's something you've never done. That's something you've either thought, okay, I need this edge for whatever reason, or in this moment I need to do something different,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
he's forced you to change. He's still the same. He's still the same
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
So I feel that when we look at that, don't get
yeah.
me wrong. Like yes, on the optics of it, in the moment, Chris like dominates and it looks funny and everything's funny. And the second
Mhm.
one was good like the first one, but Connor has his zingers in there. Eddie has his zingers. Even Nigel has his zingers at points, but ultimately it's just a case of I feel like
Mm.
Chris realized that he maybe didn't have the control he wanted in the first one and tried to then gain that control in the
What?
second one.
So,
He was
what
a
was
lot
the
more manipulative.
control that you think that he wanted, base? When you talk about control, what do you think? What do you mean?
Like I feel like the control he wanted was ultimately everything here is going to play to my tune. There's nothing that you can
Okay.
say that is going, that can either derail or is going to stop the flow or change where we're going to go in this. Whereas there was times, like I said, Eddie would say something and then he
Yeah.
reacted. Like he said, no, I'm not here to talk to you. Stop talking. Then answered questions that Eddie gave him.
Yeah,
like
eventually Eddie
yeah.
could
So
Eddie
so
could
you're
lay it down
yes.
though.
So
Yeah,
you've actually you've broken your own character, and I
yeah,
feel like
Ed
because of that, when the second one came, even though it kind of happened
yeah,
again, he was able to frame it in different ways.
yeah.
So
But
I feel like he tried to
Eddie's
regain
savvy
all
though.
the control that he
Yeah,
lost in the first one back in the second one. Hence why he started trying to rebut the things that Eddie and them said in the first one in the
yeah.
second, which he took 2 days to research. Like there was a lot
Mm,
going on. But again, I just feel like it feels more like desperate on his part than Connor's, because ultimately Connor said,
interesting.
"Look, your career hasn't amounted to anything. Like you've every time you've stepped up, you've lost. In
Yep.
now, when you could have been fighting the world champions, you're fighting
Hamza
a
Shiraz.
welterweight.
Yep.
Like, well, not Hamza. We're talking about the world champs. We're talking about. I know we
Hmm.
said Hamza as well, but
Yeah,
let's
Hamza was one of them that should have
yeah.
happened. Yeah.
But that's the level that we're supposed to think that he's around. But you're
Hmm.
choosing me, and then even though you could say the other side, yes, okay, well, Connor, you're choosing him, so you're picking the money as well. But Connor's like, I'm 28. I've got
It don't
six,
matter to
7
me.
years left. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
don't matter to
I
me.
can do this. I can take this risk. It won't do nothing to my career.
Hmm.
But you,
Hmm.
on the other hand, why are you doing it? Kind of thing. So all of these things there is, and that's all the stuff that he necessarily doesn't like. Plus the whole
Mm.
Neymar and the four
I was about to
million,
say,
you
yeah,
know,
4 million to his
all of that.
homie.
Now, whether that's true or not, again, I mean, Chris didn't dispute it. And we're gonna say, but these are things that are, these are things that are, like I said, he got some stuff in there. So I found it interesting on both sides. I definitely obviously think Chris had the most impactful stuff, but I feel like maybe Connor had more stuff that kind of cut deep until the second one where Chris started going at Nigel a little bit, and I felt like because he knew that was the way to
To
get to
rattle it.
Connor,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
Connor's emotional already. Now you're gonna really like get under his skin, and but you know what? Funny thing is, Nigel's the one that no Connor, don't worry, no,
Yeah,
no, no.
yeah, he was
I'm
calm
old
as you
school.
like.
Don't worry about
Yeah,
that.
because
I'll
yeah,
handle this
because I
myself.
apologize. Yeah, don't worry about it.
But don't, but if you want to do something, like I might be 61, but like, and when you hear that now, you're like, raw, okay. So
Yep,
Connor was able to calm down he immediately because like his dad
because he
didn't sound
knows his
frail.
dad.
Yeah.
He knows
So
his dad.
again, the whole thing was just interesting on both sides, but it was just funny that one side was very united, the united front.
Hmm.
The
Yeah,
other side was
true.
very fractured and
Fractured.
was
Yeah.
was singular. And the biggest thing about that again on both days, the whole thing was sorry, Connor, he's too big for you. Like you're just not you can't handle this kind
Yes.
of thing. And ultimately, that's what realistically the fight will come down to that. Unfortunately, even if you are the better boxer,
Hmm.
everything is going to play to the fact that you're much taller than him. You can, if you have to get on the inside, clinch,
Why is that a bad
wrestle,
thing?
all these things, it's going to happen. That's a part of your skill set
Yeah,
anyway.
absolutely.
Because you've done that with guys your own size before. So it's
Hmm.
not just about your skills. And as much as you're trying to dismiss that other thing, it plays a factor. Um, so yeah, that was kind of my sort of thoughts on it. It was a very, like I said, it was very entertaining both days. Like I was, even though I didn't necessarily get everything I wanted on the second day, I was still glad to be there. There was still some, the funny spots. The egg detector was quite funny. That was
Yeah, that was
when it came
whatever.
in. I
Yeah.
was no, I was laughing when I saw that. I can't lie. Um, Eddie cussing the jacket. Now the thing is, no,
Eddie
now the
was.
thing is, I know
Eddie,
Maestro
yeah.
and Joe Habib was on yesterday. So shout out to them, and they
Okay.
were saying why would you be dissing the jacket? That's a great jacket. It's like $6,000 jacket or whatever. And don't get me wrong, it is a nice jacket, but I do think what he was basically trying to say about you're dressed like that was because of the environment it was a very warm, hot type environment. So
Okay.
why you dress like that when you know what the weather's like or what it's like in here, kind of thing. I think that's the angle he was going at,
I
unless he
get
was
it.
just
Like he was
rattled
trying to
and
say, yeah, he's just trying to
yeah,
say he's showing off, isn't it?
yeah. Unless he just rattled and he couldn't really think of something better to say. But no. To be fair, both the jackets were nice, but the one with the utility Louis V jacket with all the pockets was yeah, that was funny still. Can't really do that with the skinny jeans, but hey, that's a whole nother story. Um,
Listen,
but yeah, look, it
and
was it
Tim.
was it was fun. It was fun times. Ultimately, I want to ask you your opinion on that fight. I won't necessarily ask you who you think wins because I know number one, you want to keep your journalistic integrity, and number two, you don't like to predict fights because you always get it wrong. So how do you see that fight playing out, and are you actually excited for it?
100% I'm excited for it. Always have been, always will be, even when other people weren't. Um, I get it. There's a lot of controversy surrounding the fight, so I think that's why people will probably tune into it even more. Um, I agree with Connor on the fact that he's got nothing to lose. I mean, what happens to him if he does lose? In fact, there's a rematch clause anyway, which I hear that Boxer and Team Eubank Jr. have put into the contract, which Ben Shalom insists that it's easy paydays. Debatable, we don't know, but that's what he says. They're clearly being paid a heavy sum for it. I think I was watching Eubank Jr.'s old fights, and I shouldn't. I should watch his more recent. But because he's been quite sporadic with his pro career, and I do believe that if he'd been consistent with his pro career, he probably would have definitely. Well, I think he would have got somewhere, but he was just too stagnant. He was inactive, too much going on, and I think that ruined his progress. Um, Conor has obviously only been inactive due to obviously the drug tests. I think he's tried his best to stay active at a couple of fights, one of them being in the US, or two of them might have been in the
Both of
US.
them were there, yeah.
Okay. So even though it's not going to do him any harm, I do believe that he's got a lot to prove, but I think Eubank Jr.'s got a lot more to prove because of who he believes he is compared to Conor. He doesn't have any respect for Conor as a fighter. Um, I do think I know who's going to win, but I'm going to keep it to myself. And we just have to see on the night. But yeah, I'm up for that fight. I've always been up for it. I've met both fighters, and Connor is the one that's always been the most like, he'll talk to anyone. Connor will absolutely talk to anyone. Whatever you see up there on stage or whatever he's doing, he's the one that will come up to you, say hello, how you doing, blah blah blah. Him, his missus, and his family. You know. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting fight, but I do believe it's going to be a bloodbath. I think they're both going to go for gold. They're both going to try and splatter each other, like horribly splatter each other. And I do hope that they've got enough ambulances on like standby. I will say that I think it's going to be an absolute outright war.
Okay. I do echo the sentiment with regards to the two of them in terms of approachability. Yeah, Connor. I remember when I met him at York Hall, or when I saw him at York Hall. Um, yeah, I was in the same row as him, and he was just kind of walking past, and yeah, just without even
There you go.
anything more said, we kind of just a quick glance, but then he just straight put his hand out to
See what
shake
I
my hand,
mean?
like before I'd even made any
There you
gesture.
go.
Like,
There you
if it
go.
was the other way around, it would definitely be you'd have to ask Chris Eubank
Correct.
if you could, exchange or
Correct.
whatever. But
Correct.
look, outside of that, what I want to ask you, I guess, before we wrap up,
Hmm.
is, as you mentioned earlier, there is an undercard. There was no sign of any undercard
Mhm.
fight as at either press
I
conference. Something
forgot.
that I did speak to Savage Dan about that. I asked it, like, why would you
I know you did
not?
because I watched your interview. That was a real
Yeah,
good interview with him, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but
thank you.
he's cool with me. But you could see how cool he was there with you. That was a very very that honestly, guys, go and check out that interview with Bass and Savage Dan. Enjoyable listen. Oh yeah, and the one with Ade Oladipo. Oh, sorry, you didn't get that one,
That's
did you?
yeah,
Sorry, what
yeah.
was you
No,
saying?
I
Yeah,
didn't get that. That's all. That's all an October special. So don't worry. He's got a cussing coming for that, but that's another
I can
story.
imagine.
Um, yeah, but undercard, of the undercard fights on there, like which one or which ones are you most looking forward to? That's what I wanted to ask you.
My lovely Vidal Riley versus Chev Clark.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
looking forward to that. I'm obviously going to watch Lyndon Arthur versus Anthony Yard, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not interested in it. It hasn't like gripped me yet because I've seen it twice already. Um, Brandon Glanton versus Chris Billum Smith. That could be a
That's
bit of
my
a
fight of
that
them.
could
That's the
wait. It
fight
could be
I'm
a show
anticipating.
stealer. We know we've watched Brandon Glanton. I mean, we're getting a few people saying, "Who the hell is he?" Go and watch his fights. That's all I'll say to you. Go and watch Brandon Glanton's fights, and once again, the ultimate respect to Chris Billum Smith, who will fight anyone. He doesn't duck. He doesn't avoid. When they said,
Unless
"Look,
your name's
Jay
Jaya
Opeta,"
Pataya.
yeah, but at least they were honest. They said, "We're not ready for him yet." They were honest with it. Everyone else
Mhm.
just makes up fantastic stories from fairyland. But no, shout out to Chris Billum Smith, who will take on anybody. Fair play to Brandon Glanton. I'm looking forward to seeing him in the UK as well. We've both spoken to him. But I'm really looking forward to Vidal Riley, Chef Clark. That's the fight for me. Um, a lot of people don't take Vidal Riley as seriously as they should. And hopefully, when we see this fight, we will see that he's up there with them. He's up there with them. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. No, yeah. Like I said, of the undercard, my fight of the night, well, the one I'm most anticipated is CBS versus Brandon Glanton. And when I asked Savage, look, is Chris ready for that fight? Now, when I said that, I didn't mean, oh, like, can he win? I just meant we saw the beating he took from Zerdo Ramirez. Like,
Listen,
and Brandon, I know, hits a lot harder than Zerdo and is a lot more
ooh.
aggressive. So after that, is that really the fight to take next? But as you said, one thing we will give Chris is that he will sort of much take. Although Brandon said he took this fight because there's nowhere else to go. He hasn't got any
No
other.
one. Yeah,
So
he's asked. He's been calling people out, and people are just like it's kind of like the Bacoli syndrome with him. Low, a high risk, low reward, and people do that with fights, and they get pigeonholed. Pigeonholed. Did we speak about Bacoli last week? We did, didn't we? Taking
we
the
did,
did
yeah,
we? I can't even remember.
we spoke about it quite quite intensely. I think me more than
Oh my
anyone else,
god.
to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
I was listening, I promise, but it's just been a week. It's been a
no,
week.
we know it's been that way for all of us. But look, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna wrap this one up now. Nice 1 hour 8 minutes or so. Appreciate you all in the chat. Thank you very much to Aaron Daly for the super chats. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
If you are listening through whether it's Twitter, whether it's through YouTube, any of the channels, in the description box of this video for every single channel, the Fight Talk Live channel is there in the description. Please click on that link. Please please subscribe. If you want to, watch the video through there as well so you get a view. It just helps with those metrics as well. um Follow all the socials. Go, flip between the two. You'll find them all. They're up there. Mine, Reds, Maestros, Danny's, they're all there. But I appreciate you all very much. Thank you very much for watching. We will be back next week, hopefully with all four of us, with the channel
Imagine.
looking like it needs to be. I mean, it's been a while since we've had all four of us from the start, but there's still some negotiations to do on the timing
So
of
it's the
the
timings, yeah.
of the show. So we're working on it. But most importantly, before we even get to that position, we need all of you guys locked in on the channel to make it known that it's actually worth us trying to do all of that. So
Yeah, for
please
real.
help us, and we will keep trying to bring that fire content to you. Red, before we go, is there
Mm.
anything you want to say to the people?
No, just thanks for watching. You know what it is. Just build the channel, exactly what Base has said. And yeah, we're here every Sunday. The timings are between 8 and 10. We're just trying to work that out between us because of the time zones, etc. But yeah, we'll get there in the end. But yeah, we do appreciate all of your support.
And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. We will catch you next week. We're out. Peace.